So you guys wanted a mid-range, all AMD PC build, say less, but we actually went the extra mile and bought all no-name or actually very well-known parts from the deepest depths of Asia. And we've gotten basically all GameMax components. GameMax is basically the kind of brand which you can buy on AliExpress, which is too cheap to be true. And you think it is a scam until you actually find out that in Asia, they're one of the biggest sellers, and they are just cheap because they're trying to break into Western markets. I've gotten their case, all-in-one and power supply, and decided to pair it with a very standard Ryzen 7 9700X plus RX 9060 XT PC build. Now, the first mistake which I did, which I don't recommend you guys do, but which I will explain why it is not fully a mistake in this case, is buying an 8GB RX 9060 XT. I won't get too much into the NVIDIA against AMD debate in this video because I think there is a reason for every single GPU, but the 5060 Ti is currently winning it for me in direct comparison. However, the 6GB version of this card is very good, and the 8GB is also. The problem is just pricing, because currently AMD cards, at least in Italy, they've gone up in price a little bit, and I can actually buy NVIDIA for cheaper, which if I can buy NVIDIA for cheaper, I'm gonna just buy NVIDIA for the more feature set, the more stable drivers, because listen, reviewers will tell you AMD drivers are great, but I build computers, and the problem with that is I sell them, and people come to me when they have problems, and they have like double the complaints with AMD cards. So the drivers and feature sets are still better on NVIDIA. Now, it may not be AMD's fault. It may be the game developer, software developer fault, sure, but the problems are still there. But with that said, let's go ahead and see what we've done. Now, the recipe for the bare bone is pretty simple. Just buy a 9700X for cheap, because it's the best value CPU at the moment. Get the cheapest motherboard you can. You can choose between a B850, X670, B650. It doesn't really matter, honestly. Just buy which one is cheaper, which you can buy, and then just slap some 6000 MHz DDR5 on it. This time I went with some XPG RAM, which is very cheap at the moment. Hynix cheap. We just need them to do 6000 MHz. These also have a decent latency. And that's basically all you need, because if you want more, you just have to manually tweak them as I show in my tutorials. You should also make sure you undervolt your CPU, because the 9700X can do quite a lot. If it is properly undervolted, you can get around 20% free performance between the CPU and the RAM tuning. It is a lot. So with that said, just throw in the GPU of your choice, which in my case is the Power Color Reaper RX 9060 XT. Why did I buy this model? Simply because it was the cheapest. I reviewed it and it's not that great. I don't recommend this card, but it was the cheapest and it does the job. It is relatively quiet. It has a bit of coil whine. It runs a bit too hot, but it will still run fine. And if you undervolt, it's gonna run great. So it was the best choice. Now, why did I pick the 8GB version? Because for 1080p, it is actually plenty and the price difference was massive. 6GB version was just overpriced in Italy. Now, we will do something different this video, and I will tell you the gaming performance before discussing the GameMax components. And the gaming performance, I will take Warzone as an example, because if you're running a game which is optimized for AMD, this thing goes fast. I was doing over 200 FPS, actually close to 240 FPS in Warzone Resurgence, which is the heaviest mode, for those of you who know, because you have the highest numbers of players landing in and stuff. And 1080p low, we were doing on average 230 FPS. Crazy good result, and good to pair with a high-end monitor at 1080p. And if you're staying at 1080p, 8GB is actually fine. For anything else, it is no longer fine, unfortunately. But for 1080p, still good. Now, 1080p build in 2025, we can debate, but if your budget is tight, this is it. And the whole PC you can put together for around 800 bucks. Of course, a lot of that is thanks to the cheapness of what we've picked. Now, for the SSD, I went with the usual Kingston NV3. As we always do, there are other options, cheaper ones, but Kingston is just reliable and I use them all the time and they are fast enough. So just went with the easy choice. Also, the motherboard had heatsink, so we didn't need a heatsink, so it was just easier. The only one, okay, so on paper, this thing looked insane because 3 infinity mirror fans on the side plus RGB on the center, full white, only one water cooler with an LCD screen integrated seemed a bit too good to be true. Typical claim you see on AliExpress, which turns out to not be true at all. However, this thing is actually the deal. It is actually so easy and convenient to install that makes me wonder why sometimes all-in-one makers complicate their mounting process for no reason. This one came with the fans pre-attached, pre-daisy chained, and with a simple splitter to connect it to the motherboard. A simple USB cable goes to the pump to the motherboard for the software, which is extremely simple to control the screen. Sure, you can't customize the screen, you're gonna have to keep it like this, but it is a simple tool to monitor your stuff while looking pretty. You can't put a GIF, it is not a programmable LCD, it is just a standard LCD with predetermined functions that work very well. And the cooler is very quiet and cools very well. Check out this Prime 95 temperature report after running for 8 hours to test the DRAM stability. Didn't even reach 80 degrees, guys, and this is stock CPU. After undervolting it, went down another 5 degrees. This is very, very good. Also check out the Firestrike. So Firestrike also gives you a very good measurement of total system performance, which I think is great, but check out the temperatures especially. These are very good, and you couldn't hear the PC running. You can only hear the coil whine from this Power Color Reaper card, but the rest was very quiet. Now, power supply. Power supply is actually a bit cheaper. I think the only one is like really good. Power supply is good, but it is cheap. It's 850 watts, 80 plus bronze, with the price of a 650 watts standard PSU. We are talking 80 bucks, even under, for this PSU. If you use coupons, you could probably get it home for 60. Crazy low price, but it is non-modular, which I actually appreciate because you don't have to connect the cables, so it's faster to build. It is non-ATX 3.0, which is why we're putting it with an AMD card, but it has semi-sleeved cables, especially the 8 pins. They have a different fabric. The others are flat cables. The 8 pin are sleeved cables with no comms. So if you were to put comms here, this would look exactly like sleeved cables, which I think is nice touch from GameMax, maybe not marketed enough. However, it has a single 8 pin for the motherboard, which I kind of dislike because even though I know I don't need the other 4 pin, it just makes my motherboard look a bit empty. So I'm not happy about that. But the PSU also has a decent weight. Aesthetically, it looks cool. The packaging is nice. So this is good if you're buying a PSU for the mid to low range. Don't get fooled by the wattage. It is not a PSU to pair with a 5080. You can do it, but I wouldn't recommend it. Don't do it, please, okay? Now, the case actually is great. So this is a standard ATX case, non-aquarium, non-fish tank, just normal, which we haven't seen many being released because all the brands are focusing on what sells. GameMax here does something different. It comes in with 4 pre-included fans, with an included RGB controllers in the back, with more slots open, where I also connected my all-in-one to sync them all, with a remote to control it, with USB-C on top, USB 3.0, very good input and output. Feels extremely solid. It has some details with the writing GameMax. They also make it in white. It's fully mesh on front. It has great airflow, super easy to undo on top. Now listen guys, I don't want to make you feel like I'm talking too good about it, but the case genuinely is great. Like, this thing was released like 4 years ago, would have been a bestseller. Now the market is very complicated. We have aquarium-like cases, tilted cases, but if you want just a standard case that works, this has everything. You would have paid triple the price like a few years back. It also has quick releases on the back, on the front. The panels are nice to take off. You can undo 4 screws on the input and output of the GPU, and you can vertical mount it. They even give you inside the case the screws to vertical mount it here. Guys, it's nice, okay? Case is really nice. This is the build. It came out better than I was expected. I'm super happy about this one, but as usual, if you guys think it looks bad, let me know down below. If you would have changed something, let me know. And if you've had a bad experience or good with GameMax, let me know so other people can also use this video to decide whether they should buy GameMax or not. And with that said, see you guys very soon, hopefully, if you don't dislike me already. Bye-bye.